The distress beacon hit the Galactic relay station at 0300 hours, and every ship in the sector went dark. Not powered down. Dark. The kind of quiet that spreads through a crew the way cold spreads through a hull breach, slow and certain and total. The beacon carried a signature that every navigator in the known systems had memorized the way children memorize fire. 9 triangles rotating counterclockwise. The mark of Vreth. Commander Leon Calloway was drinking cold coffee on the bridge of the exploration vessel Ardent when the beacon came through. He set the mug down. He looked at the coordinates. He looked at Ensign Petra Dawson, who had gone the color of old chalk. Nobody spoke for 4 seconds. Then Leon said, "Plot a course." Petra said, "Sir." Not a question. Not agreement either. Just 2 letters sitting between them while the rest of the crew tried to figure out if their commander had lost his mind or found something worse. The Vreth was not classified as a predator in the Galactic Registry. The registry, Leon had always thought, was written by people who had never been in the same room as one. The Vreth was listed as a Category 4 apex biological entity, solitary, territorial, sapient. The sapient part was the part most species forgot, because the other parts tended to end conversations before they got that far. She stood 2.5 meters tall. Her skin was a deep silver gray that shifted toward black at her joints. Her claws, the ridge of bone that ran from the base of her skull down her spine. Her eyes were amber with vertical pupils, and they had the quality of something that had never once, in its entire existence, been on the losing side of a hunt. Every species that had encountered Vreth in the wild had one policy: leave. The Venlari left offerings at system entry points and hoped she would ignore them. The Korathi had lost an entire diplomatic vessel and responded by rerouting all their trade lanes 17 light years around her last known position. The Sulani, who were considered the most militarily capable species in the sector, had a single standing order regarding Vreth contact: do not engage, do not communicate, do not linger. Leon Calloway had read every report. He had cataloged every incident. He had studied the 17 confirmed encounters and the 41 suspected ones, cross-referenced by species, duration, and outcome. On 14 of the 17 confirmed encounters ended with a non-Vreth party either dead or permanently relocated. The other 3 ended with the non-Vreth party running fast enough that the Vreth apparently lost interest. Leon found this fascinating. The Ardent dropped out of slip drive 300 kilometers from the source coordinates, and the first thing the sensors found was a Vreth scout vessel. Half its hull sheared open, venting atmosphere in 2 places, listing at a 40-degree angle that suggested its stabilizers were gone. The second thing the sensors found was Vreth herself, outside the hull, in open space, moving along the exterior of the damaged ship, with the slow, deliberate purpose of someone who had not yet decided whether to be angry or simply practical about her situation. She was not wearing a suit. Aunt Petra made a sound that was not quite a word. "She does not need one," Leon said. "Vreth biology can tolerate hard vacuum for approximately 40 minutes. It is in the registry." "You read the section on Vreth biology," Petra said. "I read all the sections." "Sir, the standing advisory from the Galactic Council for encountering a Vreth in distress is to observe from a safe distance and report the coordinates to the nearest Sulani military station." "Yes," Leon said. "We are not doing that." "No," Leon said. He was already moving toward the communications console. "Open a channel." The channel opened. Leon said, in the best Vreth phonetic approximation he had spent 4 months learning from a recording that the Galactic Linguistics Archive labeled "Do not use for direct contact." "I see your vessel is damaged. I am Leon Calloway, a human. I am offering assistance." The silence that followed had texture. The entire bridge crew stopped breathing at the same moment, which Leon noticed because the ambient sound of the ship changed, became cleaner, more empty. On the external feed, Vreth went completely still. Then she turned. In the vacuum of space, facing the Ardent's bow cameras, her amber eyes caught the light from the nearby star and held it like something stolen. She looked at the ship for a long time. Then the channel produced a sound like gravel and deep water, and something that Leon's translator rendered imperfectly, as this is unexpected. Leon said, "Yes, I imagine it is." He pulled up the docking bay controls. Petra said very quietly, "Commander Calloway, she is going to eat us." Leon said, "Probably not. She is sapient. And right now she is also stranded." He started the bay doors cycling. Those are two things that tend to create negotiating room. The bay doors opened. Vreth looked at the open bay for 11 seconds. Leon counted. Then she moved toward it, hand over hand, along the hull of her broken ship, pushed off into open space, and crossed 300 meters of nothing like it was a hallway she had walked before. She landed in the Ardent's docking bay with a sound like a controlled avalanche. The bay sealed. Atmosphere flooded in. Leon walked down from the bridge. His crew watched him go the way people watch someone step onto ice they are not certain will hold. The bay door at the corridor end was a pressure door. Leon hit the release. It hissed open. Vreth was standing in the center of the bay, her damaged ship visible through the exterior window behind her, her eyes fixed on the door as it opened, on the human standing in it, who came up approximately to her sternum and was holding no weapon and showing no fear. She looked at him for a long moment. Leon looked back. "Your stabilizers are gone," he said. "And you have 2 hull breaches. My engineer can patch the breaches in 4 hours. The stabilizers will take longer. Do you want help or not?" Vreth said something that the translator took 3 seconds to process. It came out as, "Why are you not afraid?" Leon said, "I did not say I was not afraid. I said I was offering help. Those are different things." Another long silence. Vreth said, in sounds that the translator rendered slowly, 1 word at a time, "You are strange. For a human. For anything." "Yes," Leon said. I get that a lot." He stepped back from the doorway and gestured toward the interior of the ship. Vreth walked through the door. The corridor lights flickered once as she passed under them, whether from her mass or from something in her biology that interfered with the electrical field. Leon was not sure. Her claws clicked against the deck plating with each step. She filled the corridor in a way that was not about physical size alone, but about the quality of attention she carried with her, total, unhurried, and pointed at everything at once. She stopped at the entrance to the main bay and looked at the crew assembled there. Every one of them standing very still. And she turned her amber eyes back to Leon and said, through the translator, "They are afraid." "Yes," Leon said. "You are not. I told you. Different things." Her head tilted. The ridge of bone along her spine shifted, a small movement, like something resettling. Leon had read that this was the Vreth equivalent of recalibrating, of updating an assessment. She said, through the translator, slowly and with the cadence of something being decided, "I will accept your help, Leon Calloway, human." Petra, standing at the back of the assembled crew, very quietly put her face in her hands. Leon said, "Good. Let me show you where you can wait while my team works on your ship." He walked down the corridor. After a moment, Vreth followed. The crew parted for them like water parting for something it does not know how to stop. The repair team spent the first hour pretending they were not aware that Vreth was sitting in the observation bay, 14 meters from where they were working on her ship. Chief Engineer Dana Holloway, who had been doing hull work in difficult conditions for 11 years and had once finished a patch job while a coolant line sprayed live plasma 2 meters from her head, kept misaligning her calibration tool in ways she had never misaligned it before. "She keeps watching," said her assistant, a young technician named Cole Barrett, through his helmet comm. "Yes," Dana said. "Focus on the hull. She has not moved in 40 minutes. Cole. She is extremely large. Cole, I need you to hand me the pressure clamp." He handed her the pressure clamp. His hand was shaking, and Dana took it and applied it to the breech seam with steady hands. She was privately very proud of and said, "Vreth are sit-and-wait hunters. They can stay still for 6 hours without any physical discomfort. It is in the registry. You read the section on Vreth." "I read it twice after the commander opened the bay doors." On the other side of the hull, in the observation bay, Vreth had not moved. She sat cross-legged on the deck, which was a posture Leon had not expected from something her size. And she was watching the repair work through the viewport with an expression that the Vreth physiognomy guide described as assessment mode, which covered everything from casual interest to active threat calculation and was therefore not particularly reassuring to look at. Leon sat across from her. He had brought 2 cups of coffee, which he acknowledged was a gesture that made no practical sense, because Vreth did not drink coffee, and he was not sure her biology could process caffeine. And the gesture was really about doing something with his hands and having an object to put on the deck between them that was not a weapon. He drank his coffee. Vreth watched him drink it. She said, through the translator on his wrist, "You came when the beacon fired. You were the only vessel to come." "Yes," Leon said. Others heard it. "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. Then they left. They followed the standing advisory. The translator processed her next statement for 4 seconds, which Leon had learned meant the thought was complex or the phonetics were difficult or both. It came out as, "The advisory exists because of encounters that ended badly." "Yes." She looked at him with an expression he was now fairly certain was something between curiosity and the beginning of something else he did not have a word for yet. She said, "You knew this. You read the reports. All of them. And you came anyway." Leon set his coffee cup down. "You were stranded. Your ship was damaged. You sent a beacon." He paused. What else would I do? The translator did not produce a response for a long time. When it did, what it rendered was, "Every other species has an answer to that question. It is always the same answer." "I know," Leon said. "You are the only one who does not." He said nothing for a moment. Then, "We have a medical bay. If you have any injuries from the hull breach, my medic can look at them." Vreth looked at him. He looked back. She said slowly, "Your medic would examine a Vreth, if you need it." Another long pause. Another of those small shifts along her spine. She said, "The Karathi medical vessel that encountered me 4 years ago jettisoned its medical staff into space before I'd finished boarding." Leon stared at her. She said, "They were trying to reduce my perceived incentive." He set his coffee cup down very carefully. "That is one of the worst things I have ever heard." The translator took a moment with her next statement. It came out as, "Yes, I thought so too." They sat with that. Outside the viewport, Dana was making progress on the first hull breach, moving with the precise economy of someone who had decided that finishing the job fast was the same as finishing it safe. Leon said, "Are you injured?" Vreth said, My left forearm. There was debris. I can get Medic Rourke. She is good, and she will not jettison anyone. The look Vreth gave him was long and complicated, and the translator stayed quiet because some things, apparently, did not translate into words. Leon stood up. I will get her. He walked to the door, and he was 2 steps into the corridor when the translator on his wrist produced Vreth's voice from the observation bay behind him, small and strange in the corridor's empty air. It said, Leon Calloway. He stopped. Why does it not occur to you to be afraid of me? He did not turn around. He said, I did not say it does not occur to me. Another silence. He said, I decided something else was more important. He kept walking. Behind him, in the observation bay, Vreth turned back to the viewport and watched the repair team work, and the expression on her face was one that the Vreth physiognomy guide had no entry for. Medic Claire Rourke, when Leon found her in the medical bay preparing a kit she had put together the moment she heard Vreth had boarded, said, Is she going to let me treat her? Yes, Leon said. Claire snapped the kit shut. Good. She paused. I have been reading every piece of Vreth biology I could access for the last hour. And her pain threshold is about 3 times ours. Her cellular repair rate is fast enough that minor lacerations may already be closing on their own. But debris embedded in tissue will not clear without help, because her immune system will wall it off instead of expelling it, and that causes long-term joint problems in Vreth. Leon looked at his medic for a moment. You read the biology section. I read everything, Claire said. Then I read it again. She picked up the kit. Let's go. They walked back toward the observation bay together, and Claire did not shake the whole way, which Leon thought was worth noting. Vreth looked at Claire the way she looked at everything. Total, unhurried, pointed. Claire set her kit down, opened it, looked up at Vreth and said, Which arm? Vreth extended her left forearm. The debris was in 3 places. Claire examined each one without flinching, selected her tools with the same careful economy as Dana on the hull outside, and got to work. Vreth watched her work. Claire worked. Neither of them said anything. Leon stood near the door with his coffee cup and watched and thought about the Korathi medical crew and the 17 reports and the standing advisory and the silence that had gone through the Ardent's bridge like cold through a hull breach. And he thought, 14 out of 17. 3 of 17 got away. 0 of 17 had ever stayed. He looked at Vreth's face as Claire worked on her arm, careful and competent and completely unafraid in all the ways that matter. Which is to say, she was afraid and doing it anyway. And he thought that 0 was a number that could change. Outside, the stars moved. The repair team made progress. The Ardent held its position in the dark between the systems, one small ship doing something no other ship had done, which was simply to stay. The second hull breach took 6 hours instead of 4, because the shear damage had compromised a structural support behind the plating that Dana had not found until she was already 3 layers deep into the repair. She found it the way she found most problems in tight conditions, which was by almost losing a hand to it. I need a secondary brace, she said through the comm, in the tone she used when she was annoyed and focused and did not want anyone to talk to her except to hand her things. Cole said, I will get it from storage. He went for it and came back in 4 minutes, which was fast. And Dana was so focused on stabilizing the compromised section that she did not immediately register the second set of footsteps behind Cole until she turned to take the brace, and found that Vreth had followed Cole down from the observation bay and was standing in the exterior docking corridor, watching the breach repair through the open work panel with an expression Dana could now tentatively identify as technical interest. Dana and Vreth looked at each other for 3 seconds. Dana said, "If you want to watch, stand back 2 meters. The repair generates heat, and I do not know your heat tolerance." Vreth said something the translator on her collar rendered as above yours. "Good," Dana said. "Still stand back 2 meters. I do not need anything in my workspace that is not a tool or coal." Vreth stepped back 2 meters. She watched. Donna went back to work. It took another hour to set the brace, seal the secondary layer, and run the pressure test on the breach. When the test came back clean, Dana sat back on her heels and said, quietly and to nobody in particular, "That's done." Vreth, from 2 meters away, said through the translator, "You do good work." Dana said, "Yes, I do." She stood up and looked at the repair, and then at Vreth and said, "The stabilizers are more complicated. The primary gyroscopic array took damage we cannot fully replicate here. We can get you to about 60% function, which will hold for travel but not for anything high stress. You will need a station dock for full repair." Vreth said, "I know of no station that would allow me to dock." Dana looked at her. Then she said, "Callaway." She did not raise her voice, and she said it at a normal volume because she knew Leon was in the corridor behind her. She had noticed him standing there 20 minutes ago. Leon came around the corner and said, "I heard." Vreth looked at him. He said, "There is a human station at Meridian Point, 8 hours from here at cruise speed. They will allow you to dock if I send ahead." Vreth said, through the translator, carefully, "A human station." "Yes." The translator took a moment. Then, "Humans are known for being unusual. We hear that a lot," Leon said. Vreth was quiet. Then, "The last station I attempted to dock at launched 3 defense drones and a warning torpedo before I had finished transmitting my approach vector." Leon said, "I will send ahead. It will be fine." She looked at him with the amber eyes that had vertical pupils and had never once been on the losing side of anything. And she said, "You say that with confidence. I say it because I am going to make it true." He pulled out his comm. "Give me 10 minutes." He walked to the far end of the docking corridor and spent 12 minutes on a call with Meridian Point Station Authority that involved him using his name, his rank, his credentials, a very specific tone of voice, and the phrase, "I am personally vouching for this situation," which was a phrase Leon did not use lightly because it meant he was putting his record and his crew's relationship with the station on the line. The station authority said yes. Leon came back. He said, 8 hours. They will have a berth ready." Vreth looked at him for a long moment. She said through the translator, "Why do you do this?" Leon said, "Because you need a station, and I know one that will have you." She said, "That is not what I mean." And he knew it was not. He thought about how to answer. Then he said, "The reports on Vreth encounters go back 40 years. Every species, every situation, the pattern is always the same. Everyone encounters you and decides you are only one thing." He put his comm away. "I read the same reports and decided the pattern was the problem, not you." Vreth was very still. She said, "You think I am more than one thing." "I think everything alive is more than one thing," Leon said. "That is not a special belief. It is just paying attention." Cole, who had been standing very quietly near the work panel for this entire conversation, hoping no one would notice him, said, very softly, That was kind of incredible, sir." Leon said, "Cole, go help Dana with the stabilizer housing." "Yes, sir," Cole said. and went immediately. Vreth made a sound that the translator did not render into words. Leon had been listening to her through the translator for hours now, and this was the first sound it had declined to translate. He looked at her. She said, after a moment, "In Vreth, that sound means approximately that a thing has been reconsidered and found to be different from what it was originally believed to be." Leon said, "Is that good?" She said, "For the thing being reconsidered, yes, always." They stood in the docking corridor for a moment while the stars moved outside the hull, and Dana's tools made precise sounds in the damaged stabilizer housing. Then Leon said, "Are you hungry? We have a galley." "I do not know what you eat," Vreth said through the translator, and he thought there was something in her tone that the translator was approximating but not fully capturing. "I eat protein, significant quantities. We have livestock protein packs, military grade, enormous portions." He started walking toward the corridor. "Come on." He did not wait to see if she would follow. She followed. Behind them, in the repair bay, Dana looked at Cole and Cole looked at Dana, and neither of them said anything for a moment. Then Dana said, 60% stabilizers. Let's get it done." And they got back to work. Meridian Point Station came up on the Ardent sensors at hour 7.5, us a medium-sized waypoint hub with 6 docking arms and the kind of traffic pattern that suggested it was busy enough to have seen most things, but not so large that nothing surprised it anymore. Leon had sent 3 transmissions ahead. The station had confirmed the berth twice and asked one question, which was, "What species are we accommodating?" And Leon had answered honestly. And then there had been a pause before the confirmation came back. He appreciated that they had confirmed anyway. Vreth's ship was under tow. Cables run from the Ardent's secondary coupling points, the damaged vessel trailing behind them like something the Ardent had decided to keep. Her stabilizers at 60% were functional, but Leon had not wanted to risk the stress of her piloting through a docking approach on a reduced system. She had agreed to the tow without argument, which he was beginning to understand meant something in Vreth terms, a kind of trust that her biology and history did not hand out the way humans handed out pleasantries. She stood on the Ardent's bridge for the docking approach. The crew stood at their stations and did their jobs, and if they were more precise than usual, more careful, less inclined toward the small jokes and seat shifting that characterized a normal approach, Leon did not mention it. Vreth watched the station grow on the view screen. She said quietly, through the translator, "It is large." "Medium," Leon said, "by human standards." She said, "How many humans are on it?" "About 400 resident crew, maybe 200 transient at any given time." Another long moment of looking, and then 600 humans who agreed to allow me to dock. "Yes." She said nothing for a moment. Then, "I have never been in a place with that many people who knew I was coming and did not activate a defense posture." Leon said quietly, "I know." "Sir?" said Navigator Hector Kane. "Docking Arm 4 is clearing for us. We are cleared for approach." "Take us in," Leon said. The Ardent eased into the approach corridor, the damaged Vreth ship trailing steady and even on the tow cables and on the station's external cameras that Leon had asked for feed access to. He could see that the 400 resident crew of Meridian Point had apparently decided that watching the approach from every viewport, observation deck, and external camera feed was a reasonable use of their shift time. Vreth saw them too, on all those faces, in all those viewports, watching. She said, through the translator, "They are watching because I am dangerous." Leon said, "They are watching because nothing like this has happened before." She turned her amber eyes to him. He said, "The dangerous part and the unprecedented part are not the same thing. You can be one without being only the other. She looked at him for a long moment with an expression that he could now read, slightly, imperfectly. The way you learn to read weather by watching it long enough. And what he read was something that had been held at a distance for a very long time, beginning to consider, with great caution, moving closer. The docking clamps engaged with a sound, like the station deciding something. "We are docked," Hector said. Leon stood up. Vreth stood up. He said, "The station has a full repair bay. It will take about 3 days to rebuild your stabilizer array properly. I have arranged for accommodation, if you want it. If you prefer to stay on your vessel, that is also fine." She said, "You arranged accommodation." "A cargo bay, repurposed, large enough, private." She looked at him. Then she said very carefully, through the translator, "Leon Calloway, you have done, in 2 days, what no other species has done in 40 years of encounters with me." He said, "We just fixed your ship." The translator processed her next statement slowly, rendering it word by word in the way it did when the source language was doing something the target language had to work to hold. It came out as, "You treated me as something worth treating well. That is not the same as fixing a ship." Leon did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "It should not be remarkable." She said, "And yet." "And yet," he agreed. The station umbilical connected. The airlock cycled. Down the corridor, Leon heard the specific sound of people who are trying very hard to go about their business and failing because they keep looking toward the airlock. Vreth looked toward the airlock too. Leon said, "Ready?" She said, through the translator. And the translator rendered it in a tone that was not quite formal and not quite something else. A tone that the Vreth phonemic guide would have filed under significant declaration. "I came to this sector because I was tracking a signal that turned out to be a relay malfunction. My ship was damaged by debris from an old battle site that human cartography had not yet mapped. I was stranded. On I sent a beacon because my ship required it automatically." Leon said, "Yes, I know." She said, "I did not expect anyone to come." "I know," he said. She said, "I had decided, in the 6 hours before you arrived, that I would repair what I could and drift to the nearest debris field and wait for a slow enough passing vessel to requisition parts from." He looked at her. "Requisition," she said. "It is a technical term. That is not what that word means." She looked at him, and the expression on her face was the one he had no entry for in any guide. And the translator produced a sound that he thought might be, in Vreth, something adjacent to humor. She said, "No, it is not. But you came before I had to find out if I still remembered how." They walked to the airlock together. 400 people on Meridian Point Station were going about their business with great focus and occasional glances toward the primary docking corridor. And when the airlock opened and Leon Calloway walked out, followed by the silver-gray 2.5-meter figure of a Vreth, who moved through the corridor with the quiet, unhurried purpose of something that had decided, apparently, to allow this. The station went very still. Not afraid still. The other kind. The kind of still that happens when people witness something they do not have a category for yet, and are in the process of making one. Leon walked toward the station administration desk. Vreth walked beside him. 3 days later, when the stabilizer array was fully rebuilt and the hull patches had been reinforced and Vreth's ship sat in docking arm 4 looking like it had never been damaged at all, Leon stood in the docking bay while the departure sequence ran and thought about 40 years of reports and 17 confirmed encounters and 14 outcomes that went one way and 3 that went the other way. And he thought about the number 0 and how it was also a number that could change. Vreth stood in the airlock of her ship. She said, through the wrist translator that Leon had given her, because the range on his wrist unit was only reliable within 50 meters, and he thought she might want to say something from farther away than that. She said, "Leon Calloway." He said, "Yes." She said, "The Vreth do not have a word for what you are. We have many words for what prey is, and many words for what a threat is, and many words for what weather does to a hunt. We do not have a word for a creature that knows what you are and comes anyway, and fixes your ship and arranges a berth and walks you through a corridor like it is simply what is done." Leon said, "You could just say human." She said, "I think, for this particular thing, I will say Leon Calloway." The airlock sealed. The docking clamps released. Through the bay viewport, Leon watched Vreth's ship pull away from Meridian Point Station with stabilizers that ran at 100%, and hull patches that Dana had made so well they were structurally sounder than the original plating. It moved out through the departure corridor and into the open space beyond the station, and it did not immediately go to drive speed, in which Leon noticed. It held position for 11 seconds. He counted. Then it went to drive and was gone, and the space it had occupied was just space again, ordinary and immense, the way space always is. Hector came up beside him. "Sir, what do we log this as?" Leon thought about it. He said, "Standard assistance provided to a vessel in distress. Resolution successful. All parties intact." Hector said, "That is a very short log for what just happened." "Yes," Leon said, "it is." He picked up his coffee cup from the equipment shelf where he had left it 3 days ago. It was cold. He drank it anyway, and looked at the place in the dark where Vreth's ship had been, and thought that 14 was a number, and 3 was a number, and 0 was a number, and all of them could change, and that changing them was not complicated. Not really. It just required deciding that something other than leaving was possible. It required, in the end, someone who had read all the reports and decided that the pattern was the problem. He walked back toward the bridge. Behind him, Meridian Point Station resumed its usual noise and traffic, 400 people going about 400 kinds of business. And if they moved through the corridors that day, with a particular quality of something reconsidered and found to be different from what it had been believed to be, none of them had a word for it yet. They were, in this, exactly like the Vreth. They were working on it.